And we're live. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast, everybody. My name is Rory Paquette. I am, as always, your very humble host. So happy to be here. And I've got an incredibly special guest this evening. I've been following this guy for a long time. He had me on his show. Um, I was looking around for some things having to do with father's rights. I was looking into the dad's advocate type of um, genre, and wanted to get some information, for myself. I was curious about how things had gone in my own journey with my daughter, which I try not to talk about too much just because she really hates it when I talk about her on this podcast. But I ran into this guy, and the information that this guy had, the passion that he attacks this with, absolutely blew me away. And I've been a fan of his and a follower of his pretty much ever since. Welcome to the show, Alan Donovan from the Father's Rights podcast.
The Father's Truth.
Father's Truth. Thank you very much.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Father's Truth podcast. Gotcha. All
absolutely.
right. Now that's a little different than what your handle is on Instagram. I want to make sure I'm getting all this correct. So what's your handle on
Correct.
Instagram? Right out,
So
right out
my
the gate.
handle on Instagram is Father's Lives Matter.
Lives Matter. There we go. Father's Lives Matter at Instagram or on Instagram. All right. Excellent. Alan, you are you're an incredibly interesting guy. You've been through a lot of the same stuff that a lot of us as dads, divorced dads that is, have been through in terms of the court system, not being able to see our kids, things that are just so screwy that, when normal people hear about it, and I say normal meaning folks who are not divorced, normal people hear this stuff and they're like, no, that just can't be. You and I have talked about this a couple of
Yep.
times. We've gone back and forth. I've seen a lot of your lives. Um, just in case someone hasn't seen you or heard you, what do you do?
So basically, I am a father's rights activist. Like you said at the beginning of your show, and I'm glad. Let me just preface it. I'm glad that we were finally able to hook up and get this done. It's been, what, a good year in the making,
I think
schedule
so.
wise.
I think so. Just about. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're incredibly busy. I'm incredibly busy. So it's been one of those things. But so being a father's rights activist, like you had stated, I went through all this stuff, a couple of years ago. And when I went through it, this was 2015. I made the mistake that most men do. I hired a lawyer thinking that, okay, this person that I am paying thousands of dollars to is going to fight for not only my rights, but my son's rights, his right to have me in his life and my right to have him in his life. And I was under that assumption because, the justice system is supposed to be what we hear an honorable system, right? Lady Liberty is blind, all that other stuff.
Right.
And I went into family court with a lawyer and I got my ass kicked. I got my ass handed to me. My lawyer said 5 words the entire time that we were in court. And we got outside. I pulled my lawyer aside and I said, "What the hell was that?" She told me, Rory, she said, "Well, at least you got to spend more time with your son." And she turned around and walked off because she was in a hurry to get to her next case. Well, I fired her ass. I fired her. And, I had custody of my son, temporary custody at that point, and the judge here in my hometown had ordered that I return my son to his mom. And his mom was living in Kentucky, so which is 2,000 miles away from me. And within a week of him being back with her, the parental alienation started. Okay. Missed phone calls, mixed text messages, all that stuff not being returned. When I did get to talk to him, it was 5 minutes or less. There was always an excuse. There was always somebody in the background listening to him talk to me and coaching him, and at this point, I didn't have another $7,000 to $10,000 to spend on a attorney. So I didn't really have very many options. And, I sat down one day and I came to the conclusion that, I'm going to have to represent myself. And I was scared to death
Right.
because I had, I had no idea what all that involved, what was all involved with that. I had no idea about the family court system or really the legal system. I'm one of those guys coming into this that, was spotless, had never been in court for anything, not even a traffic ticket. So it was a completely alien environment to me. And I had 6 months between the court case up here and the next court case down in Kentucky. And I ended up teaching myself family law, not only in Montana, but in Kentucky, to the point where when we had the next court case, I went in there representing myself against a lawyer. She had a lawyer, and I won. I walked out of there with 50-50 custody, which is what I wanted. And then a year later, we were back in court again. The judge remembered me. He greeted me by name, which is a rarity because there's so many people that circulate through these family court,
Right.
rooms that, you wouldn't expect the judge to remember you, but he did remember me, and he greeted me by name. And I was in there for 20 minutes, and I walked out with full custody of my son. And that was 5 years ago.
Full custody,
And at that,
full legal, full physical, the whole, I mean, the whole bit.
both, the whole enchilada.
That's
Yep.
almost unheard of.
Yes. I was a 10%er at that time. So basically what that is in the family court system, 10% of fathers who represent themselves only, let me rephrase that. Of the amount of fathers who represent themselves, only 10% win or walk away with full custody. And I was able to walk away with full custody. And I got back home and, I had this big decision because I had started Fathers Lives Matter as a way to basically journal my progress through it and bring support to me for what I was dealing with. And I had this choice to make where, what do I do with Fathers Lives Matter now? At this point I had I only think 1,000 followers, 1,500 followers, whatever the case may be. It was growing, but I had to decide, do I get rid of Fathers Lives Matter because that is done? Or do I take all this knowledge that I've taught myself and accumulated, and do I start passing this down to other fathers that are in the same position? And ultimately, that's what I started doing because, I didn't have somebody to turn to when I was going through it. I had called all around up here when I was going through it, looking for programs for single dads, anything. And there was nothing for single dads. There was everything for single moms, but nothing for single dads.
Right.
And the emotional support was the other side of it because, I didn't have anybody to support me emotionally. I mean, even my own father told me I was going to lose. So, and it's such a tough situation to go through the family court system. I mean, it's truly a freaking meat grinder. It will destroy you. And I wanted to be able to help these other guys that are going through what I went through and to foster them and pass the knowledge that I've learned and I continue to learn on down to these other guys. Because, make no mistake about it, the family court system is corrupt from top to bottom, and it is geared against men.
See, now I've heard you. No, go ahead.
That's what I do.
I appreciate that. I've heard you say that a couple of times, and when we first, hooked up way back when, I know that was one of the things that sort of caught my attention, was that you were actually saying things like that, like, "Hey, it really is corrupt." The general consensus out there, especially from folks that are not dealing with any sort of divorce situation, is that if the father's having any kind of a problem at all, then he probably deserves it.
Correct.
He must have done something wrong. He must be completely in the wrong, no matter what. I mean, that's kind of commonplace. Yes.
Yeah, that is the general belief. And what I chalk that up to is society today. Look at social media, look at mainstream media, look at how they portray single fathers. They portray them as freaking idiots. Look at Homer Simpson. Look at Family Guy. Peter, what's his last name? They show fathers as morons and these doofuses. And then you have the whole deadbeat dad mythos that's out there running around, and you couple that in with the Me Too movement, and it makes the perfect storm. Yeah, it truly makes the perfect storm because anything that a guy does is considered bad. And I've ran into that time and time again that, oh, well, yeah, you must be a deadbeat dad. If you're not seeing your kids, you must be a deadbeat dad. Well, no, but did you ever stop and think maybe mom is not allowing me to see the kids? Because I can guarantee you that happens more often than the deadbeat dad thing.
Right. Well, and people who are not involved can't even fathom the idea that the mothers in a lot of these instances are simply using the kids
Correct.
as leverage, as punishment, as battering rams to punish, the other
Yep.
the former spouse, and
Correct.
and that never ever ever comes across to anybody
Nope.
unless they're on this end of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, I get into this argument every day, literally every day on social media with people who are not part of this family court universe, who are just on the outside looking in. Well, that's not how it is. Bullshit. That is absolutely how it is. Well, it's not sexist towards men. Yeah, it is. It is absolutely. I went so far a couple months ago, it was during the summer. I threw out a challenge because someone had said in one of the videos that I posted that I was lying, that I was making things worse than it truly was. And I said, okay, fine. I said, most family courts in bigger areas, bigger cities, you can go in and you can sit down and you can watch the proceedings because they run people through there like cattle auctions.
Right.
It's a revolving door. I said, you go in there and you sit there and you spend a couple of hours and you watch these dads come through and you see how it goes and you come back and talk to me and you tell me if I was full of shit or if I was telling the truth. And guess what? I got this big long email from this lady. She's a feminist who I'd gone head to head with many, many times over the course of this whole time. She was telling me that I was full of shit. And I'm like, I'm not full of shit. She apologized up one side and down the other. She took the family court challenge and she went there to her town. She sat there and she watched and she said, Alan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was actually like this. She said, every single thing you said was on point. She said, you are not lying. She said, I had no idea that men and fathers are treated this way in the court system. I said, well, there you go. Now you know.
Yeah. Now you run a show,
Correct.
basically, and so tell everybody kind of what you do there. It's an Instagram show.
Yeah.
It's also your
So
podcast.
it's also my podcast. So, I had gotten to the point where Fathers Lives Matter was growing pretty significantly. And, this was before Reels on Instagram really became a thing. And so it was kind of like, I can post this picture and do this, but what can I really do to really help these guys? Because I had a lot of guys reaching out to me asking me for help. And I thought, what's something I really love? I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time. And I had never heard of a podcast that dealt with fathers' rights, specifically interviewing these different fathers that were going through this and telling their story with no judgment. That's the big thing. No judgment, no preconceived bias.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had never heard of that. And I thought, well, shit, I got a big enough platform right now where I can do this. And so I threw it out there and I said, hey, if somebody's interested in coming on, let's do this. We'll talk and I'll give you the ability to tell your story. And it was really ganky and really ghetto at first how I was having to do it because I didn't really have experience. I didn't have good equipment. Like I bought my first microphone, my first USB microphone off of Facebook from some kid who was a gamer. I bought it for like $10. And that's how I started out. And I started doing that and we're 300 episodes in now. And like I was telling you during the pre-taping that I got my wrap because my podcast goes out to all the major podcasting platforms like iTunes, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Podcasts.
Sure.
And I got my Spotify wrap. And basically, if you don't use Spotify, basically at the end of the year, it gives you a breakdown of everything. And I found out that The Father's Truth is in the top 25% globally of all podcasts, which that blew me away.
That's awesome.
That it's
so
phenomenal.
Awesome.
I mean, it was more than I had ever expected. And, because I don't have the time to focus on this solely because, I'm a single dad. I have a regular 9-to-5 job. I'm raising my son, so I have to figure out how to do all these different things and have time for him. And for me to still be able to do that with that podcast that I don't put a whole lot of time into. And I take the summers off. That's the other big thing.
That's
I take
right.
the summers off from doing anything so my son and I can spend time together. And for that to come back as being in the top 25% globally and the top 3% globally of its specific category that it's in, well, it was just mind blowing. I was like, wow, there is a huge audience. People want to hear these fathers telling their stories. And I think we're at this breaking point where people are starting to catch on that fathers are getting screwed and they're starting to
Yeah.
speak out. And when people hear these stories, some of the stories that I've had on my show, their minds are blown.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, I'm taking December to really game plan what I can do in 2023 to really focus on that, because my ultimate goal when I started doing the podcast was to transition from this kind of medium that you and I are doing right now to a docu-series on Netflix or Hulu or one of the streaming services where I'm able to interview these guys one-on-one in the same location and have them tell me their story, kind of make it a big production kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's my ultimate goal with this. And I think with what I was able to do in this last year, just kind of half-assing it, I think that's very attainable.
Nothing would surprise me. I mean, you've been growing like crazy.
Yeah.
So, the numbers that you're talking about alone show to me, the very first thing when you told me that before the show, number one, congratulations, because
Thank you.
that's just awesome. You're hitting a chord. But the thing that came right into my head was, that's how many guys need this, something so badly. They're looking around for it everywhere, and it's just not out there. And, one thing that you do, since you and I met, I've found several other sort of, father's rights advocate type, groups, Facebook, Instagram, and I check them out. Everybody's got value. Everybody's, doing a service. You just have this real sort of cut through the BS authenticity about you, because like as soon as anybody talks to you for 5 minutes, they know that you're not like just doing this for a paycheck or just doing this to do a thing. You've lived it. You do this because you got beat so bad at the beginning, and that comes through. And so I think that a lot of people understand that they connect with you over that, man.
I think so too, because genuinely I care for every guy that I meet up and every guy that I talk to. I call everybody my brother because we are all brothers. It doesn't matter what color we are, what creed we are, what race, any of that stuff. If you're going through the family court system and you're dealing with this stuff, you are by default my brother. And I want everybody to be together, because that's the only way we're going to solve any of this stuff is if we have each other's backs, because we can't do it by ourselves.
No, hell no.
And the more of a community we're able to form, the better off we are.
Yeah, you definitely are needed, man. So I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
As I'm hearing all this, one of the biggest aha moments for me when I was talking to you the first time, when you had me on your show, was you let a big revelation out to me that I had no idea about. I've mentioned that at least 100 times to other dads, to other people having to do with, divorce and so on and so forth. They look at me like I'm making it up and like I'm completely crazy. There's a reason behind, why the courts are still as bad as they are. You know exactly where I'm going.
Yeah, I do. I do.
why this is happening. Okay. Because, it's not even that there's no impetus to change it. It's that there's actually incentive to keep it bad.
Keep it the way it is.
Tell people about this.
So, and the first time I heard this, I was blown away. I didn't believe it either. And then I did a deep dive in it and I was like, holy shit. Okay. So when it comes to the family court system, when it comes to child support and all the little umbrella organizations that are associated with that, which is child support, CAS, guardian ad litems, even CPS is part of this umbrella of the family court system. Fathers bring money to the table. Mothers do not. Okay. And what I mean by that, and that, I'm going to preface this, I'm not digging on Single moms, there are a lot of amazing single mothers out there. I am a product myself of a single mother. Okay, so that's not where this is going. This is just the reality of the situation. Child support is an umbrella of the Social Security's Administration. It's under Title IVD. Okay, you can go right to the website, the government website, and it lays it all out for you right there. Basically, for every child support case that is on the docket in a family court system, that family court gets a kickback from the federal government. They also get bonuses for, accounts in black versus red, the number of accounts that they have going on. There's like 5 or 6 different bonuses that they have going on. So they don't want to change the family court system because there is so much freaking money that comes in through child support and the fees that are on top of child support. Child support is a $300 billion a year industry. To give you an idea of how big that is, the NFL is 50 billion. Child support is 300 billion. So there is truly no want to change the system because, if you're questioning when I said fathers bring money to the table, mothers do not, look at what just your average father pays in child support and then flip that. If it was a mother paying that child support, it would be 10%, if that, of the child support.
Absolutely.
And that's why it is, because fathers are the ones that bring the money to the table on this, and then also on top of that, for every mother that is getting child support who is also on welfare, be it EBT, be it rental assistance, Section 8, cell phone plans, utility plans, cash, welfare, all that, part of that child support that those dads are paying goes to pay the state back for that welfare that she is on. So it is quite the nifty little racketeering system that they've got going. It's a Ponzi scheme, really, when you get right down to it. And they sit at the very top of it, and we as fathers sit at the fucking bottom.
I know what you're going to say, and it's still making me sick to my stomach because the first time you told me this, I was like, nah, no way. And then, I went and looked around and I was like, oh my God, he's serious. Yeah. Like he's right.
I have told that to so many people and I've gotten the exact same response. Oh, you're full of shit. No way. No. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I wanted to believe you and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, is there any way this is actually true? And geez, it is.
Well, it's such an outlandish claim to hear if you do not exist in this little universe that we exist in, this little family court universe that we circle. It's such a drastic thing to hear. And I was talking to somebody and she was a big women's rights activist. She wasn't a feminist per se, but just all around, empowering women and, blah, 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 and that whole thing. And I was talking to her and I told her this and she was like, no, that's not how it is. There's no way it could be that way. And I said, yeah, it is that way. I said, what do you want to bet? Well, no. Well, and she didn't know what to say. And I was like, okay, Alyssa, here is the website. Here is where it lays all out. Go down to paragraph 4 and start reading. And she read it and she was like, my mind is just blown. She was like, I cannot believe this. She said, I always thought that child support was to better the child's life or to keep the child's life at a consistent level between the two households. And I said, yeah, that's what they sell it as.
Right.
That's what they sell it as, is so the child can live the same life that they're used to at mom's house, at dad's house, or at dad's house versus mom's house. I said, that's how they get it passed. They have all this feel good vibes to it and tell you that it's for the kids, just like the impetus of the family court system itself. It's in the best interest of the child. But under all this pretty shiny veneer, there's still the same bullshit. And that's the courts enriching themselves. Okay. And then the politicians are enriching themselves on it as well. And I was telling this the other day, last year at the start of the year, I reached out to every state representative, every federal representative, every state senator, and every federal senator, talking about family court and how it's sexist towards men and, the whole 9 yards. How many of them do you think replied to me?
I would guess zero.
Zero. I couldn't even get a junior staffer to reply to me.
Ridiculous. Absolutely
They
ridiculous.
don't want to change it. Like, have you ever heard of the military industrial complex? Are you familiar with that?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so basically, the military industrial complex is comprised of all the industries that support the military, all
Okay.
like the defense industries like Boeing, Raytheon, all that stuff. It's a huge, it's $1 trillion a year industry.
Okay.
That's basically what we have with family court. It's the
Uh,
lawyers, the judges, these programs that are paying these family courts these exorbitant sums to, screw fathers over. The majority of the time, it's fathers that get screwed over by this. It's a pipeline, and then we're not even talking about, the in the inner city, the family to prison pipeline that the family court system has engineered, where all these young kids that are part of single family homes, primarily the mother being the parent in charge, how they have higher incidences of teen pregnancy, suicide, drug use, alcoholism, crime,
right.
death, incarceration. I mean, the list goes on and on.
So this entire thing is its own ecosystem all by
Absolutely.
itself.
It's
All
a
by itself.
fucking monster, is what it is.
Well, and they don't like people rattling the cage, clearly,
No, they
because
do
you've,
not.
I mean, you've done very well with, getting monetized and your social media
Mm-hmm.
following, and all of
Yep.
your numbers for your podcast. So you're definitely helping a lot of people. But the powers that be have not exactly stood by quietly while
No,
you've made your point, have they?
no, they have not. I got banned on TikTok 2 weekends ago for speaking out against society's push to feminize males.
Okay, now
I
that's
mean, if you
TikTok.
look all around, yeah, TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah, I got banned on TikTok of all places.
Wow.
I had 11 and a half thousand followers and I got banned. And when I challenged that and requested a review and wanted to know why I was banned, they told me I was banned for kink shaming. And at the time, I wasn't even sure what the hell that was. And it has to do with the LGBTQ thing, that whole area of society where you can't talk down about somebody's proclivities, we'll say,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term.
Okay.
And I wasn't even doing that. I was speaking out and asking why society continuously tries to feminize men. And I got banned there. And then we go over to Instagram. Um, one of the things I'm a huge proponent on when it comes to fathers' rights, men's rights is suicide.
Mhm.
There are so many fathers out there who end up committing suicide because of the pressure that is applied to them via the family courts, whether it's not being able to see their children, the financial end of things. That's a huge thing where these guys get so despondent that they see as suicide as their only way out. So I'm a huge proponent on that. I speak out on that regularly. Just earlier this week, it was this weekend, there was a father down in California. He was a principal at one of the middle schools down there. He got into a fight with his wife one night. She filed false accusation charges against him. He was arrested and convicted of, I think it was simple battery. At any rate, because of that, he was going to lose his job as a principal and he was going to lose his livelihood. And it's that pressure. He ended up killing himself. He jumped off a parking structure in Disneyland,
Yeah.
of all places. And I posted that and I spoke out about the circumstances that led up to her death. Instagram demonetized me for a month for doing that. I posted that, and 5 minutes later, I found out I was demonetized until January 3rd of 2023 for speaking out against that.
Okay. Now, when you first told me about the TikTok, I'm almost speechless right now. 80 episodes of a podcast, and I'm speechless. This is crazy. The TikTok thing, when I first heard it, I was surprised. Then
Yep.
when you told me why, I almost was like, wow. I mean, that's the woke crowd. I almost get it because that's how
Yep.
bad things have gotten. So like I could see where they took the angle from. And the fact that I even could see where they took the angle from tells you how twisted things are right now.
Right. Well, I mean, and really, if you look at TikTok, TikTok is nothing but kink and kink shaming. They live in this little
right.
duality. So for me to get banned because I was kink shaming when I wasn't even doing that. That tells you a whole hell of a lot right there.
Yeah, it really does. It really surprised me that that came from a platform that is being run by China,
Mm-hmm.
of all places.
Yep.
I mean, if you actually do that there, you go to jail. But that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But the Instagram thing,
Yeah.
the speaking out. I mean, what exactly did they say to you on this one? Because like I'm not
They
even
didn't even
seeing
say
a
anything.
I'm not even seeing a thread of how that happens. You know what I mean?
They
This is
didn't
an
even say
incident.
anything. So
It's an incident that
how
you
it
spoke out
works,
about. Yeah.
yeah. So how it works is when I go through and I create a reel and I put it together, it shows me there's a little panel down at the bottom for monetizing. Like I can choose if I want to monetize every single reel that I make on Instagram or not monetize it. I have that option to do either or.
Mhm.
And so I always have that set to default. So it's on. And I went through and posted it. And about 5 minutes after I posted it, you have another little subsection that gives you information on monetizing on your items that are monetized. There was a little exclamation mark, and I clicked on it, and it had like when you violated a community standards post, you get a picture of whatever it is that was violated.
Okay.
So it had a picture of this post, and then down below it just said that I was demonetized. I was unable to monetize reels until you know next year, January 3rd of 2023. And it did not give me any indication as to why, just that it was this post. And I could not most of the time you can ask for reviews on this kind of stuff,
Right.
but they wouldn't even let me review it. They just said, oh, this is what it is. You're not eligible until next year. I was like, seriously.
I
Wow.
just wow. Okay. I mean that tells you right there. I mean, that's not even like a political statement. That's not, coming out, in favor of, Trump or anything, which they hate. I mean,
Yeah.
this is just policy of family court and, a guy who's under too much pressure. I mean, that just blows me away, man. I'm sorry. That
Yeah.
particular
And
thing
and
absolutely knocks me over.
I've posted numerous things in regards to this. In fact, anybody anytime a father does this sort of thing and it hits social media, I get tagged in it and I respond and I post it. And I posted shit, I don't even know how many of these things I've posted now about fathers who have killed themselves because of family court and the associated things. This is the first time that has ever happened. So I don't know if this is an accumulation of all these or what the deal is, but like I was also telling you during the pre-interview, how during my interview with Yana Herding, they just turned my phone off midstream. Like you and I are talking right now, they just turned my phone all the way off and cut the stream.
Wow. Nuts. I just nuts. And that's another thing. People don't understand the censorship. They don't understand the shadow banning. The flat out
Mm-hmm.
blackballing that goes on. They go, "Oh, that doesn't really happen," until you
Yeah,
see it happen.
yeah.
It
I mean,
happens to you.
I get death threats.
I was
I
going to
get
ask you
death
about that,
threats.
man, because this isn't just the government that's giving you a problem or the
Yeah,
social media institutions. I mean, you get actual death threats
I
for
get
what you're
actual
talking
death
about.
threats for what I talk about.
Like from who and exactly about what?
And it's because I'm speaking out against, it's, they always say it's single mothers. I'm speaking out against single mothers, or I'm putting mothers in a bad light and speaking out for fathers. That's what it always comes down to. And I get death threats. Oh, you better watch your back. Somebody's going to get you one of these days. We're going to kill you. And they're burner accounts, so I can't actually track who it comes from.
Yeah.
Like I click on the account name, and it'll take you to a page unknown, or it'll just take you to one of those pages where it's just a very random name, very generic, and there's no profile picture, no followers. It's just basically somebody who's jumped on, made an account to message me specifically.
I mean, that's an awful lot of effort.
That is an awful lot of effort,
you know,
and it'll happen. Like if I get certain guests on, that'll trigger it. I mean, I had somebody message me. This was a couple years ago, and they called themselves a ghost. And I had a conversation back and forth with this person for a couple of days. All they would tell me is they were out in New York City. They were a ghost. And I said, well, what the hell is that? And they said, well, it's somebody who's behind the scenes running things, somebody who's not forward facing. I said, okay, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, well, I just wanted to let you know that you've drawn the attention of specific people who are watching you. I mean, if that's not fucking ominous, I don't know what is it.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? And he goes, it just means what I said.
Talking about dads. Talking about fathers.
I think it's not so much talking about dads. It's the fact that I am very outspoken about the government and how the government is corrupt. I think that's where it comes from. Because I call out judges. I call out politicians. I call them out by name.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've definitely seen you, do that with the judges, especially.
Yeah. I think that's what generates it is, I get on these watchdog groups or whatever the case may be, and they don't like it and they throw out their little warning. And, and then I talked to somebody else that's pretty well known. And I said, hey, how would you handle this? And this was after I got my first death threat. Mm-hmm. And I sent them a screenshot of it. And he goes, I would take it as a pat on the back. He goes, you are making the right people uncomfortable. He goes, what happens when you turn on the lights to the cockroaches? They run.
Yeah.
They run from the light. He goes, you are making waves. He goes, I wouldn't be scared of it. I said, well, I'm not, but obviously I'm going to put precautions in place, that I have to, but I didn't expect to ever be in that kind of a position, but I am, or I have been.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Now, being in this position, let's get off the scaring everybody who's listening to the podcast for a minute. And wow, man. I mean, even when I know what the answer is going to be, it still blows me away. You know what I mean? Wow. So you've now what you also offer a few other things to guys. I mean, you're not just out here preaching to them. You offer a lot of services to guys, stuff
Correct.
like that. Tell guys about, because there's someone in my audience right now who's listening going, man, I probably need to talk to this guy. So
So basically, I offer myself as a second set of eyes because I've been through, just about everything these guys are going to go through. I've been there. I understand the court system. Like I said, I taught myself family law in 2 different states. Obviously, I am not a lawyer, so I cannot give quote unquote legal advice.
Right.
But I can give my opinion. So if you bring me, your parenting plan, I can take a look at it and go, hey, this area doesn't look right. You should maybe focus on this, and maybe you should look at doing this. Or if I was in your shoes, this is what I would do. Because that's one of the biggest things is, these guys get this stuff, these briefs and documents from the court. And for most guys, it's an alien language. Unless you understand how to read a court document and know what they're talking about, it's like fucking gibberish.
Right.
So it helps to have somebody that can understand that. I talk to guys about child support, how they should do it, what they should look at doing. So it's coaching, basically, is what it is.
Okay.
The biggest part of it is the emotional side of things. That's where the biggest need comes from, because most of the time, guys going through this, they don't have somebody that they can talk to that understands the situation and what they're dealing with. And that goes for family. Most of their family doesn't understand it.
Right.
If you've never been through this, you're not going to understand it. And they just need to be able to open up to somebody that's not going to be judgmental about the situation and is just going to listen to them and acknowledge. That's the big thing. Acknowledge what they're going through. Because that's the other part of this whole little fucked up triangle we got going on here. Guys, fathers aren't acknowledged for what they're dealing with. We're told to shut up and deal with it.
Right. So
to have somebody that can actually acknowledge that, it helps a lot. So those are kind of the things that I do. And, I had somebody ask, well, why can't, I've got a lawyer. What do I need you for? I said, well, if you really think about it, that lawyer is just doing it for a paycheck. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about your kids. You're just another name on a docket in a courtroom. You're a financial number to them. And I said, I asked this person, I said, well, does your lawyer get back to you on time? No. I said, do you have to poke and prod your lawyer to respond? Yes. I said, does your lawyer do what you want them to do? No. Well, that's why you need somebody like me. Because I'm here, I have your best interests at heart. Lawyers can't say that because they don't.
Yeah, that's why they need an advocate.
Correct.
Right. Now, I in the interest of making sure that this doesn't come off as, again, bashing of moms or, anything like that. You have had a lot of women on your show.
Mm-hmm. I have.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and by and large, what is that? What's the subject matter there? What are those folks usually doing for the people who haven't had the opportunity to hear them?
So I have stepmoms on.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of stepmoms that come on the show that, talk about their perspective of things, because stepmoms get a lot of bad shit done to them in these kind of relationships where they're trying to support their husband or boyfriend, whatever the case may be. And bio mom takes it out on stepmom.
Right.
So, they have to have a voice as well to speak out about things. I've talked to grandparents, I've talked to aunts, I've talked to pretty much everybody that you can think of, just females in general. I talked to a feminist. I had a feminist on a while back.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, who was like, holy cow, wow. Okay, well, I'm glad I was able to talk to you. I'm going to give this to my other hardcore feminist friends who have bought into that whole persona that men are bad kind of thing. And, I've even had single moms on the show talking about their situations, because, the truth of the matter is, for every bad baby mama out there, there is a bad baby daddy.
Sure.
And that's just the reality of the situation.
Well, as far as that goes, I mean, there are actually deadbeat dads.
Yeah,
there are actually dads who, don't show up for the visitation, and
yep.
Those of us who have been in that arena, I've been there plenty, is the few bad apples always spoil, it for the whole bunch. And that happens with men and women.
And that's exactly what it is. And whenever I hear that, I say, well, you know what? So I've been doing this for almost a decade now. And over that course of time, I have worked with thousands of fathers around the world. I've only ever encountered 5 fathers that I would consider deadbeat dads that I would not work with. 5
in all that time.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, I think that makes the point.
It does. But the people that you have to point this out to don't want to hear that point.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's a very biased opinion.
So you've been doing this for a while. I've been following you long enough to see you evolving and changing and growing and moving on. What I saw something the other day on one of your posts. You've got some new stuff coming up in the new year. Yeah. So what can you tell everybody about what's new coming up?
So it's called the Deadbeat Dad Diaries. So, and I can't devolve too much on it.
Okay.
But it's kind of like, you ever hear the vagina monologues back in the day?
Unfortunately, yes. I heard of them.
It's kind of like that.
Is it really?
It is. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to anything you're putting out at this point, because, at the very least, it'll be entertaining.
Yeah. So, and basically, I get upwards of 150 messages a day on Instagram from dads, and it runs the range from, they're sending me videos that they saw on TikTok or Instagram of father's rights stuff, or they're sending me communications that they've had or are having with their exes, baby mamas, whatever term you want to use. They're sending me these communications, these voicemails, these texts, these emails. And so, there was one day where I got like 60 of those, and I was like, I need to do something with these. What can I do? And that's how the Deadbeat Dad Diary came into fruition.
And so, I remember your post going up saying, "Hey, send me that stuff."
Yep. And so then I posted that, And boy, did I get stuff. I stopped counting, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I imagine so. I've
I
seen a
had
lot of
so
your
many
arguments. Yeah,
communications.
I've seen a lot of
Yep.
the. Well, I don't want to say arguments. I've seen a lot of the communications that have gone, back and forth in your comment sections and everything else. And um,
Yep.
I mean, because I like your posts, and then 750 comments. And you look at the comments, and I mean that's its own, set of reading
Oh
right
yeah.
there, just to gauge the response.
Oh yeah. Yep. And it's interesting. The bigger that I've gotten on Instagram, the bigger the wide variety of people I'm now pulling in. Like I have feminists that will show up in the comments on the regular. I have people that tell me I'm racist. I have people that tell me that, I'm this, I'm that, I'm everything else because of the message that I spread. And you follow me, I have a big mouth. I do not hold back in the comments. If you say something stupid or whatever the case may be, and I do not like it, I'm going to come right back at you. I don't hold back. I'm not one of these people that has a big Instagram account that posts and you never hear anything back from them. I
Oh, you're
interact
very
personally.
active. You're very
Yes.
active in your comments. Yes, that's I mean,
Yes.
that's one of the reasons why I read them.
Yeah.
To be honest.
And I have no problem defending. That's the other part of it. I will go toe to toe with a person on their stuff. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I had somebody a while back tell me that I had white male privilege. And I was like, really? I was like, let's talk about what my white male privilege has gotten me over the last decade. Having to fight for my son, having to work 2 to 3 jobs because there are no programs out there for fathers,
Right.
being charged exorbitant child support rates. That's what my white male privilege has gotten me. And I have a whole nother post about that that's coming up in 2023. So be on the lookout for that.
I'll be looking for that. Yeah, for sure. All right. All right. Listen, just in the interest of time, I mean, I know it's late. We both, have day jobs and stuff. So I appreciate
Correct.
all your time as always, man. But
Yeah, absolutely.
you're a beacon of hope to a lot of people who are out there. You've got a lot of information a lot of guys don't have and don't even know to ask for, frankly.
Yeah.
But let's just say somebody's hearing this podcast or they come across you on Instagram and they're just starting out. They've just hit the divorced life, so to speak, and they're starting to realize I really am screwed. Okay. Best, 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of advice, that you can give to the brand new guy coming out, whether it's to avoid the issue or to, set himself up or, how to contact you, whatever it is.
So
a couple pointers for the new guys.
yeah, so I'll give a couple different scenarios because I find these are extremely important. If you are somebody who is on the cusp of divorce, you're not yet divorced, but all signs are pointing towards that imminent divorce, go get a parenting plan. Don't wait to get blindsided by that. Go get a parenting plan. An attorney can write you up one for cheap. You can write up your own parenting plan. You can do it online. They have drag and drop processes that can do it that are legal in your state. But write that parenting plan up, get it ready to go so it's in your back pocket. So once she says, hey, I want a divorce, boom, pull out that parenting plan. You're already, 20 steps ahead. Because that's one of the big things. Guys, we don't understand this kind of stuff and we tend to get blindsided. And all of a sudden, boom, she's just served you with a parenting plan. And that's where 99% of the problems for guys happen is they get served with that and they don't know how to react.
Right.
They don't understand anything about it. So they make one bad decision after another. So that's my first piece of advice.
Okay.
My second piece, if you are somebody who is on the other side of the divorce, it's already happened. Okay. You're divorced. You're now doing the single dad thing. You're doing the weekend dad thing. Start documenting stuff. You need to document everything. I don't care how little or unimportant you think it is. I can almost guarantee you if something happens down the line, it's going to be important. When I rolled into family court that second time when I was defending myself for the first time, I had 13 binders full of evidence of documentation that I had made over the course of those 6 months. emails, text messages, all this other stuff. You have to become Sherlock Holmes. You have to become your own detective.
Okay.
When you pick your kids up, take a look at how they're dressed. Are the clothes in good condition? Are the clothes clean? How are the shoes? Do the shoes have holes in them? How are the kids' personal hygiene? Are they bathed? Is their hair combed? Is their teeth brushed? How are their nails? You have to look at all this stuff, document it. And then when you drop them off, document the shape that you drop them off in. Clean clothes, bathed, all this stuff. If you have a scheduled pickup time, document if it was on time, or if it was late, how late was it? Was it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Because by doing this, you can establish a foundation for all this stuff. If you've got somebody that is continuously, dropping the kids off with their unbathed, their hygiene is not good, they're not on time, this is all stuff you can use in court later on down the line to establish a foundation. But you have to be willing to do this every single time. And that's another hard thing that guys deal with is it's monotonous. When you get your kids, you don't want to have to spend 2 hours documenting everything.
Right.
But you have to do it. You can't. I've talked to a lot of dads who said, well, I'll just do it at the end of the month. No, you can't do it at the end of the month. You have to do it when it's going and it's fresh, because by the time the end of the month rolls around, you're trying to recreate stuff that may not have happened. And that can screw you in court.
Right.
Get yourself a journal, start writing down this stuff. So those are the two big things. And I have one thing that is a huge thing that a lot of people don't talk about, but I think it is hugely important. And I don't care if this is a girlfriend, a fiance, or a wife. If she comes to you and says she's pregnant, okay, you need to get a DNA test as soon as that baby's born. And the reason why I say that is paternity fraud is rampant these days. I've worked with way too many fathers that were, swindled into believing the child was theirs when it turns out the child wasn't theirs. So you need to get a paternity test done. And if you're in a situation where you're going to get put on child support, get the paternity test done before you sign any kind of documentation. You don't want to be paying for a child that is not yours. Let's be honest here. I love women, but women are getting devious. They're getting downright devious these days, and they think nothing of this kind of thing. It's sad.
I've heard you say that before about getting the paternity test. I mean, I know that can be a very awkward, conversation, but by the same token, yeah, I hear you, because there's no repercussions.
Yeah,
for the other side if they do that.
Well, and there's different ways you can do this. So many people think that you have to go through a doctor to get a paternity test. If the child is born, you don't. You can go down to your Walgreens, CVS, pharmacy. They sell paternity tests down there. It's over the counter. It's not prescription. I did a video on it where I walked into my local Walgreens, walked back to where the paternity test was. You get the paternity test. It's like $130 for it. And then you pay, it's like a $200 lab fee. And you have an answer within a couple of weeks. And it's a mouth swab. You swab your cheek, you swab the baby's cheek, you send it in, boom, you're done. Yeah,
you're not drawing blood or anything.
Roulette with that.
You're not drawing blood or anything. It's just,
No, it's a cheek swab.
Yeah, good advice, man.
What is that? $300 compared to possibly 18 years worth of child support payments?
Yeah, it's a lot longer than 18 now, too.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like 26 now.
It's 26.
Depending on the state, 26 plus. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It's ridiculous, but, here's my last piece of advice.
Okay.
Be proactive. That's the biggest thing. Be proactive. If you know you need to do something, frickin' do it.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and wait to do it until they're dragging you screaming in, because that's one of the other things about the family court. If you have to be in the whole family court thing, be proactive in what you do. It's going to go way better for you, which, it's the family court, so it's not saying a lot, but it's going to go way better for you than if they have to force you to do something.
Right.
Doesn't matter if it's child support, if it's parenting classes, that's a big thing. Sign yourself up for freaking parenting classes. Be proactive. Find out what you have to do. Get a hold of me or somebody else that knows about this stuff that can lay you out what you need to do and do that stuff. Do it. You'll thank me later after the fact. I can promise you that.
Yeah, sounds like it. The journaling is one that I didn't realize until it was much, much, much later. And
Yeah.
I mean, I missed the boat for at least a decade on that
Yeah.
entire thing. So I
No, and
know
it's just
firsthand that's good advice.
yeah, it's just those little things that you don't think about. I mean, I didn't think about any of that stuff the first go around until I got in there and I was like, crap, I need to be doing this, this, and this, and this. And you figure you devise a game plan. You write yourself out a syllabus of what you need to do and you stick to that. That's going to be
Yeah.
the hardest thing, is sticking to these kind of things.
Right. Great advice, man. Absolutely great advice. Every time I talk to you, I learn more. I'm telling you. It's amazing.
I'm a wealth of knowledge in this kind of thing. And it's,
You really are.
it's one of those things as it evolves, you never quit learning because there's always something new to learn with it.
Right. So, all right. Best way to contact you is
Fathers Lives Matter on Instagram. DM me. It has all my contact information there. I'm going to tell you though, like I said earlier, I get up to 150 DMs a day and it's just me. I don't have somebody else operating the account or anything like that. It's just me. So it takes me time to go through all the DMs because, like we talked about before, I have a regular life outside of this.
Yeah.
I'm raising a teenager by myself. So it takes me time. Eventually I do get to you, but if it's a situation where it's in an emergency situation, tell me that up front. Because that'll kind of get you to the queue,
Okay.
to the head of the queue. But yeah, that's how you find me. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, tell your story, same thing. The link is in my bio and click on it and we can get you set up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's going to help a lot of guys. So
I hope
all
so.
right, man. All right, Alan, thank you for being on,
You're
man.
welcome, Roy.
Thank you for making this happen. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope
Yeah,
that
it took some time, but I'm glad we were able to do it.
Yeah, I hope that a lot of our guys are going to get some good information from this. So, all right, folks, this is Alan Donovan. He has said everything everything that I possibly could say. Every time I talk to this guy, I am completely blown away with his knowledge, with the way that he delivers it, with the time and the trouble and the expense that he has to go to just to garner all this knowledge and then just share it with everybody is utterly incredible. Alan, again, thank you, man. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Glad to be on here, and let's get you back on my show.
I would love to. Love to.
Yeah, we can talk specifically about your podcast, and because the first time we kind of covered your personal story, but let's talk about your podcast.
That'd be great. That would be great. Thank you, man.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
As we usually wrap up, guys, the reason we bring you people like this, quality individuals who are actually out there trying to make your life better, is because you're worth it. And you absolutely have to believe it at some point. So you know what? Today's a good day to start. Until next time.